I mean, a lot of what she struggles in, and especially in this like new version of this book, is being a good friend or not being present enough for the people who like need her. And that really does come from a place of her wearing herself out before she can be of service or before she can be helpful to somebody else. So that make no promises thing does stem from her lack of, I guess, commitment and dedication to people around her. She is very every person for themselves.
Here we are with Isabel Agajanian. Welcome. I'm so excited we get to finally talk about Modern Divination, which has been one of my favorite reads in 2024, like the old version of it. But I am so excited we get to talk about the new version as well. So I wanted to ask you if you could maybe introduce the book to new readers or people who haven't heard like anything about it, just to start.
So Modern Divination is the first in a duology. It follows two rival medievalists from Cambridge as they set aside their differences and come together to quash a threat to the witches around them. It's a great book for fans of the Atlas Six, A Discovery of Witches, Ninth House, and Howl's Moving Castle, which is a bit of an out there one, but it makes sense.
I feel like that describes it pretty well. But it's pretty, like, I've read the Atlas Six and I loved it. But I feel like, I don't know, there's like a little bit more romance, maybe, I would say, in Modern.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I loved it so much. So just to start, I wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about the inspiration behind the book. Like, what was the spark that gave you the idea to start writing about this book?
There were a couple different things that really kick-started Modern Divination in my head. It wasn't really anything specifically. The location really came from a trip that I went on to visit my friend to Cambridge. For a while, I had this like vague idea kicking around in my head, and I didn't really know where to set it. I had these characters that like weren't really working in the story that I was originally trying to tell. And then I went to go visit my friend who studies in Cambridge, and I was like, no, this would make it so much better. Everything's falling into place here. So that's where the setting came from. The characters also took a lot of different forms before I landed on this one, so that one's a little hard to pinpoint. But I mean, I was watching a lot of the X-Files around then, so its initial form was more of a sci-fi. It was still like a two college adversarials get together to solve a mystery, but the mystery was very different, and it involved cults and aliens, and Teddy was, neither of them were medievalists. Teddy was a theater major and she was in library sciences. It's a very different book, but it's sort of like slowly morphed into what it is now, which is, a contemporary fantasy, and both of them are magical, and it's about medieval history vaguely, if you squint a little bit. So it wasn't really like, I think a lot of things went into it becoming what it was. Wasn't really like a spark of it's a very uninteresting answer. It took a lot of work to sort of get it to that, and nothing really just sort of fell into my lap in that sense.
Yeah. So how did you, like, you said that everything was kind of like different at the beginning, but like, how did you come up with the characters of Aurelia and Teddy? Like, even the dynamic between them, like, which is, I would describe it as rivals to lovers, which is something I believe a lot of people love and appreciate and look for in books. So like, what is the inspiration behind these characters as they are now?
Well, like I said, the X-Files did play into it a lot. I think the thing that I liked about them was that they were both extremely competent people, but together, like put into a room, they just kind of acted like idiots. So I really love this idea of like two really smart idiots to lovers happening right now. When I usually write books, it usually starts with characters for me. So I'm very much a characters first, plot second. Maybe I'll get to the plot, maybe. But I'm like a character first writer. So they were fully formed before I started writing the book. And a lot of that inspiration came from me wanting to like harness the skulder, you know, that ship. I really wanted to, you know, write something that made me feel like that. And then it just sort of took on its own thing. I realized I was like, I can't really do that with the setting that I've set up for myself, for the story I wanted to tell, and it evolved from there. I did watch a lot of Howl's Moving Castle. That was like my crutch at the time. That was my like comfort media. So I just had that on whenever I was doing anything, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Make him a bird for sure. I was like, go ahead. He's a bird now.
That's clever. But like, since we were talking about characters, so like people who have not read the book, even the previous edition of it, can you tell us or them something more about Aurelia Schwartz? Which, correct me if that's not how you pronounce it, but I'm trying my best.
No, that's perfect. What about her? Okay, let me think.
It's because
Aurelia is
a very particular character, I believe, like in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
I love her very much. So I feel like everyone should love her. You know, we have to protect her. So,
she needs protection. I don't think she would say that, but she needs protection. Like, get behind me, girl. I'll fight for you. She is very hard-headed, very strong-willed, ambitious. Doesn't really know how to take care of herself, which I think comes from a deep place of understanding, because I also don't know how to take care of myself. But she is, she's very competent. That is the one thing I wanted to get across, that she is sort of, she does a lot of things and has a lot of very unhealthy behaviors that enable her to really excel at what she's doing. And it's setting her back emotionally, socially. She's struggling. And I feel like for anybody who's in academia, or even just like a particularly rigorous like career, that's a bit more relatable for them than I think somebody who surrounds themselves with friends all the time, or somebody, you know, who has a good balance of work and social life. She dives really deep into her work, and it leaves little time for anything else, which has impacted, you know, her friendships, her relationships, just the way she sort of navigates with the world. But, you know, she has her priorities in check, or at least, you know, well, I don't know if they're great priorities. Like, a career is a great priority, but she's a little intense about it, and a bit cutthroat about it. So she could calm down a little bit. But yeah, she's got her priorities in check, and that's like her big thing. She's gonna get that degree.
Yeah, I'm sure she will. Yeah. So since Aurelia is like the main character, I would say, not to take anything away from Teddy, but like, you know,
he's there.
No, I love him too. Okay. She has 3 main rules that come from the way she is, like the way she's a witch, you know. And the rules are, I'm gonna read them just to not mess it up. Make no promises, tell no one what you are, and never stay the night. And I wanted to ask you, like, to maybe explain these rules to new readers, and as well, like, how do they resonate with the story? Like, does she respect these rules and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, she definitely respects these rules. I do think I sort of, also very uninteresting, I do think I sort of came up with that on the fly because I needed something to fill space. I was trying to create a back cover, like, a blurb, and I was like, this is not interesting, and I threw that on there, and I kind of hate it, but I was like, it made sense. Like, the rules are like pertinent rules for her. So that make no promises. She is I think she's self-described as very fickle, so she's very hard to pin down in one place. She's not much for commitment. She is very self-involved a lot of the time, so it I mean, a lot of what she struggles in, especially in this like new version of this book, is being a good friend or not being present enough for the people who like need her. And that really does come from a place of her wearing herself out before she can be of service or before she can be helpful to somebody else. So that make no promises thing does stem from her her lack of, I guess, commitment and dedication to people around her. She is very every person for themselves. And that's not great. That tell no one what you are, I feel like it could be a little self-explanatory, but she is a witch. And in this world, witches aren't necessarily commonplace, and they're definitely not open about who they are. So that's a very baseline secret or rule, I guess. And that never stay the night is it's another like callback to her lack of commitment. She is one of the things I did want to write was just a sexually confident character. So I was like, but I also I think that when it comes to people with actually, this is a very general statement, so it's definitely not true for everybody. But I feel like in her case, she, all this focus on her work has sort of led her away from more committed long-term relationships. She's sort of shirking off all of that. But it's like, she is still somebody who I think wants to be close to people and has her own way of sort of expressing that or fulfilling her needs without actually like committing to things. And that never stay the night is more of it's a rule for herself not to get too entrenched in something that isn't her work, while still fulfilling that other need of hers. That is definitely like a physical thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I feel like the make no promises and never stay the night part like also helps her, like if she doesn't get involved, she doesn't have to tell people that she's a witch. So, like,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Even in like non-romantic situations with her roommate, she has that same dilemma where she loves her roommate and is like, this is the person I'm probably closest to now that I live over here. This is the person who I lean on for everything. And so she sort of feels like she's like lying to them, because she hasn't told them about this big facet of her personality or identity. So yeah, you're on the nose with that for sure.
So since you mentioned Cambridge before, I wanted to ask you, like, okay, so you told us about Cambridge and why you decided to set it there. But what about Townsend? So, like, it's an imaginary place, right?
It is.
Let's talk about it.
It's imaginary just because I needed it to be something that fit my precise need, but it is based off of a lot of just little towns that I'd seen or I'd been to or I'd like just glimpsed that are in the UK. I needed it to be somewhere rural. I needed them to be cut off from the internet. I needed their little cafe internet dates to happen. And that was for me personally, like I just needed that, like that was a need I needed to fulfill. I was like, I need to make them have a cafe internet date at some point. And it's like the worst date ever. It's not even a date. They're just like, I don't know, arguing about stuff and they need the Wi-Fi, but it's fun for me. So I needed to stick them somewhere rural, really force that proximity on them. But also I needed this character of Gemma, who ends up being a very big person in the first and second books. Gemma, I needed her to be a little cut off from the world because that is a very big part of her character. So having a rural setting that I could really fine tune exactly to my specifications was important to me. I feel like I would be mortified if I was like, oh, this little town in the middle of nowhere, nobody comes to it. It's so like sleepy and whatever. Like if someone were to pick up my book and read that about like their actual town, I think I would be mortified because I was like, I love you. You're probably fantastic. I just need it for the plot. So I think in that case, it was good to just make my own little town. I love it. It's characterized by one really big central hill. And Gemma is this witch who lives at the top of it with her young daughter. Otherwise, it is just very sleepy town. It's quaint. They have a cafe there. Some people, as with a lot of towns, it's like a smaller area that's been swallowed up into this like bigger city. And that bigger city is where, they take the train, they do all this stuff. And it's like, this is just sort of like the offshoot of that.
Could you tell us like a little bit about your writing process? Like, not just for Modern Divination, but like in general, like how you start writing a book or like your process.
Yeah, it does always start with characters for me. I think without knowing it, when I was a lot younger, I started writing fan fiction, and that was before I knew what fan fiction was. It was when I was still working on like the home computer, and I had one friend who I would like print out fan fiction of like Disney Channel characters, and we would swap these things and like like it was a labor of love, us like 9-year-olds trying to like write fan fiction. But I think that really set me on a track for character forward books. So I write a lot of my books like fan fiction. I think of them as like these fully formed characters with their own lore that I've come up with. I've written a bunch of random supplemental information for, and I just kind of put them in a room and like write conversations until I figure out what the meat of their characters is. So that happened with Teddy and Aurelia, but it's happened with every other one of my projects that I've worked on, is that I have these two characters. I come up with them before I come up with anything else. And then I basically write a bunch of like one shots, you know, speaking in fan fiction terms.
Yeah.
I write a bunch of things that I'm like, this isn't for the plot. This is like for me. This is just like Eternal Beach episode. So I just write a bunch of that until I figure out like what works, what really feels right for the character. And then I sort of build a plot around that. So Modern Divination's like, you know, I wrote so many different iterations of scenes or introductions that I knew were never going to see the light of day, but until one of them really clicked and I was like, this is the one, it was all just kind of like fun and games. So there's a lot of mod div that just didn't make it into the actual book. It's purely just like characters in a room talking. But yeah, I do think it's like the plot really is followed by these characters. A big revelation here. Without a good character, I don't think I'd be able to come up with a plot. I mean, sounds like a very basic way to say it, but like there's more to it, I swear. Yeah, character first, and then I build the plot around them.
Oh, that makes sense. Since you know, the new edition of Modern Divination is coming out, I think next week on the 30th of January.
Yes.
Since so it's coming out very soon, and I wanted to ask you like to talk a little bit about the changes that came with this second edition. The first one was self-published, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you like what made you believe that you needed to include these changes, and maybe was it something also that you received throughout like maybe readers' feedback or something like that?
Yeah, so for the most part, so I don't actually read reviews, and that's to protect my peace, but also I don't really care. I mean it in the sense that like there's nothing I can do about it at this point. Like it's out of my hands. It's just gonna hurt my feelings. So any critical information, I'm kind of like, sorry, I can't really do anything about that. But I did, like up until the self-published version came out, and then I decided, okay, I'm out. And I was really good about that, and I never looked at Goodreads ever again. But I looked at reviews for like the period that self-published version ARC readers had it, and I could see what they were saying, which to be fair, it was a lot of positivity, but there were some people who just absolutely hated it and were like, this is the worst thing I've ever read. And it actually didn't really get to me, but I did take away a couple of like you know, key things. And luckily, here's the thing, no matter how mean somebody is to my books, I can guarantee that I've been meaner. Like I am my book's biggest bully. So a lot of the time it's like I'm reading these things and I'm like, they could be really mean and like kind of, you know, trying to be like, you know, get a rise out of me, whatever. I don't know. But most of the time I'm just like, you're so right. This sucked. Like it was like, this was not good. This totally needed work. And that was like a really great thing about this deal that I got, this book deal, was that I was able to go in and make all of those changes that I'd already like had a lot of insecurities about. And luckily these changes were these issues, I think, were so blatant that my editor and I really aligned on this. A lot of the things that I thought needed to be changed, she was already like, hey, could you go in here and maybe add a little more about this? And I was like, what if I told you I've already done it mentally? It's going to take me like 2 seconds to draft this up. Let me get this over to you. And I did implement those. So the beginning is... Okay, so that beginning chapter, I think, covers like 3 chapters of the self-published version. It was a very long, drawn-out introduction that didn't need to be there, so I condensed a lot of that. I think I might have lost a little bit of the pizzazz of it, but it's okay. It's worth it to get. It's still a slow-paced book, but it got there a little quicker, which is good. I got to add a little more context about our story's villain, which I actually had in the self-published version before I sent it off to my editor at that point. And she was like, I don't think we need it. And I took it out, and then I regretted it ever since. And I was like, oh, we need to put this back in there. So my editor was like, I think we need more about her. And I was like, I have it. It's sitting there waiting to be used. I'll get it right now. So I could just repurpose that and fix that up. But yeah, a lot of it was just like line level refinements, taking out sentences, cutting paragraphs. I've added a lot of information to the book, but it's about 7,000 words. I think almost 8,000 words shorter than the self-published version. It doesn't look like that. It looks like a monster. This thing is huge, but it's significant. It's like 8,000 words shorter than the self-published version. There's definitely something, like, there's definitely new scenes. The entire beginning first, I think it's the prologue. I don't know if it's, prologue? The prologue is new. I feel like there is maybe another scene that's just, like, brand new, but, like, the entire beginning is, like, completely rewritten, just to take, different set of events and, squash them into this little tiny thing, because that was, like, 3 chapters, and I was like, I didn't need this, so I was like, it's gonna happen this way, and that's it. But... yeah, it's significantly shorter, but there's plenty of added material for it. So people who pick it up don't think that they're like reading the exact same thing, just in like bite-sized form. It's definitely not bite-sized. It's big. It's big.
So I wanted to discuss Teddy's letter at the end of the book. So spoilers. I actually have it. There's like a sentence in there that I love very much, that I want to read. So just give me a sec to get it. So, I used to think I understood you. Still sometimes I do. But under a much softer light, I know fairness is subjective. But I can't imagine anyone finds it more unfair than me that there was ever a time I didn't adore you.
Oh God, I'm embarrassed. I don't have to hear my words ever like get read back to me.
That was crazy to me. I loved it so.
I know. I was like, jail time for me. Send me away. No. But I actually haven't heard like an audiobook version of it yet. I know it exists. I know other people have heard it, but I don't actually have a copy. So I think when I hear someone read my words back to me, I'm like,
I'm probably not as good as an audiobook reader. So
that's an inside thought, though. I'm like, that lives in my head. That's it. Yeah, that whole letter was like a moment of weakness for me. I was like, that was a nighttime inside thought. I was like, I gotta write this. But yeah, that line, I feel like I cooked with that line. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I cooked with that line. I was really proud of that.
No, you were like insane writing it. Yeah. Like, was it like, this letter, was it something you always planned to include in the book, or was it something that came up while you were writing it?
So I think I knew how it was going to end for these 2 characters. I knew how this book was going to end for these 2 characters, specifically. And this is also to get around any spoilers. And I think I needed something that would, I guess, resolve it a little more nicely. Like, I knew that there would be something else after this. This definitely isn't like oh God, I don't know how to say it without giving anything away. I think the ending is still a good ending. Like, I don't think I think some people might be left unsatisfied with it, but to me, I think they still ended up exactly where they needed to be at the end of the story, and that is still with a lot of love and affection between them. but I feel like I needed to add a little more of a concrete expression of that, like to make up for the way. I'm trying to get around this, but I think I needed something tangible for these readers to hold on to when they were like, dang, this isn't quite what I wanted. Like, don't worry, just bear with me. Just trust me. Like, I would never let you down. Like, I'm walking you through this. Like, just hold on. We're gonna do a crazy time skip in a second. Just give me a second. Hold on to this note. I also think, like, knowing what I know, like knowing where I was going to put them in the next book and start them off, I was like, Aurelia needs to hold on to something. She's just gone through this big character development of finally opening up to somebody and letting somebody see her without her guards and sort of confessing all of these big things about her family and her identity and her life in general. And she needs to know that, like, all of that wasn't for nothing, that she hasn't just like put herself on the line and let herself feel all of these very big feelings and be let down. She needs something to hold on to, like a little, she needs a reward. She needs a star for her participation. And she got that. That's her star there.
But did you always plan for it to have a sequel, or did it start like a standalone thing? I think very early on, I knew it wasn't going to be one book. So I don't know if I always knew it was going to be two. In my head, it's like this long running, like, MCU. Because in my head, I have these other books planned for it that I'm never actually going to write because I don't think anybody wants them and I don't think my publisher's going to buy them. Second, that's the big one. But I always had a book set in the future and a book set in the past, which was goth 80s goth Alaric book. That was one book that, like, I had cooking up for a while. I was like, I love that one. And the second one was a teenage Louisa book. And Louisa is the daughter of this, reclusive witch that lives on the top of the hill. I think she's about 7 during the events of the book, but in my head I always had this, like, she's a teenager. It's like a YA sort of like magical coming of age. I had that book planned for her, and that's like it's like I have like the bones of a book planned for that one. For the Alaric novella, it was supposed to be a novella, but that Alaric one where he's in the 80s, he's goth, he's following bands, he's meeting Gemma for the first time. He's coming into the caretaker role. Like, that one I had a lot more for, but like I said, I mean, I don't think these books are ever going to happen. Yeah, I think, in my head, it's always been more than one book, but yeah, I like to think that I want to write characters that live on after the book is done. I think sometimes people read books and I'm like, this is a great story, but I definitely know that they didn't do anything after this. Like, this is the story, obviously. But, like, I don't think these characters stayed together after this. Like, I think they got a divorce. Where it's like, this relationship would not last. Like, this is only sustainable for, like, the amount of pages that I'm reading. And with them, I really wanted to, obviously I know how the second book ends. I know what's going on there. So I'm speaking from a context that nobody has. But I want these characters to have lives after this. I feel like I want to give you a really good picture of what goes on after this. So, it's more than one book, but I think they're forever in my head. They're not just, they're forever there. Yeah. Great.
That was a long answer. I'm sorry. It was really long.
They live somewhere in your head. That's fine.
Oh yeah, rent free.
Since you just mentioned Gemma, I feel like what's, like, for people that are gonna read it, it's gonna be like a question for them, I believe, when they're reading it. Gemma is a character that you start off reading about her and you're like, I love her, but then something happens that we're not gonna say, and then I don't know if you're gonna like her anymore. If you could like explain, or just with a sentence maybe, say to people something that could, like, save her in their opinions about her. Just like
something that could save her.
This idea that we have of her at the beginning of the book, that kind of got destroyed,
Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna say bear with me. It's gonna be a long game here in the story. I think one sentence would be, she's wrong, but she's got the spirit. Like, she's wrong, but she's got the spirit.
I want to believe she has a reason, you know?
Yeah, she has a reason. Like, she's wrong, but like she had her reasons, you know? She's doing her best. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can still do your best and that not be a good job. And that's sort of the crux of her character. She's doing her best, but she's very misguided in a lot of her things, which, like I said, will be revealed in book 2. But yeah, that's really the meat of her character. She's trying her best, and sometimes that just isn't enough.
Oh, is there something you can share with the public about the sequel without spoiling it?
It's really sad. That's what I'll say about it. It's really sad, but it's definitely more romantic, even more angsty. That was possible. It is possible to get more angsty. It's going to be a different type of angst, though. There was something else. I forgot what it was. Yeah, it's more romantic, more angsty, more sad. More of the magic system, more world building there. I'm counting that as 4. But it's just a bit more of everything. I think Mod Div was a really nice, slow walk in the park. It's a very sad walk in the park. It's like a sad walk where you're listening to like Mitski, but it's still a walk in the park compared to book 2, which is just like a mental wrench. Like, it's just gonna it's gonna hurt.
Like, you cannot.
I'll say they end up happy. Well, actually, no. Yeah.
What?
Do they? I don't know. Okay, that's not even like me trying to like mess with you. Like, I don't know how this ends up. They're together. I'll say they end up together. They're gonna get a together ever after. I don't know if it's gonna be happy, but they're together. Like,
since we already said that Modern Divination transitioned from being self-published to actually being published traditionally with publishing house, is there like any advice you would like to give new writers, people that start off with self-publishing? Would you recommend it? Stuff like that.
Oh, I love self-publishing. I think it has such a soft spot in my heart. Like, I'm still thinking of things that I would like to self-publish. I have projects that are like, I would only traditionally publish this because it's really weird, versus like, I want to self-publish this because I love it so much and I want it to be my baby. That was what Mod Div was for me. It was like my baby. I was like, this is my freaky little book here. It's gonna be my creation. So I do love self-publishing and I do recommend it. I think invest in yourself. That's like a very big one. I think Mod Div got the success it did because I paid for a cover artist who was fantastic and really fit the vibe of the book. I paid for an editor who, you know, I'm not going to say Mod Div was perfect or that it was like, I think, edited to my liking, but that was all a me issue. My editor really cleaned it up because it was a messy draft. She did a fantastic job and helped me refine it a lot from what it was before. And on the topic of editing, like when I went to TradPub, my editor there had a lot of other changes she wanted to make. Which, like I said, I agreed with pretty much all of them. It really could have used a little bit more, but it's like, you're never going to feel wholly satisfied with the book. There's always going to be something you want to fix or something you want to change. And with self-publishing, you're sort of the only person that can make the decision that like it's done and I'm ready to wash my hands of it. But with TradPub, it's like you have somebody sort of approving these changes, like telling you like this change is necessary, go make it right now. So it's good to be really critical of yourself, I think. Love what you're doing, but like as a commercial product, I mean, you can afford to be pretty mean to yourself about what you're making. I think it does help to be really critical and hold yourself to like a high standard, like take yourself seriously, you know? And that was something I did during self-publishing. I really took it seriously. I was like, I'm gonna, I wanted this to be the best it could be. and that involved being really mean, killing a lot of my darlings. So I was pretty ruthless in editing. Like I said, there's so much in Mod Div that isn't there. There's so much of it, all this bonus content, that I just was like, this doesn't really need to be there. Like, it's nice and it's wish fulfillment-y. But yeah, just be ruthless. Like, really, really be critical. Think about, like, if this is something you're writing for yourself, but a lot of the time it's like, would you actually read this book? Is what I'm saying. Like, sometimes the act of writing and the act of reading are two very different things, and it's like you're having a great time writing this, but it's like that might just be like, this might be hobby writing. Like, write something but without the intention of
publishing it.
Writing with the intention of having a reader look at it and enjoy it as like a narrative is very different than writing for, enjoyment and writing something just because you love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so out of the Modern Divination world, is there any topic or other ideas that you would like to explore for other works in the future? Like, have you ever thought about writing something else? I know you still have to publish book 2 and it's not finished here. Okay, but are you already thinking about something else?
Oh yeah. So in addition to these spin-off books that I had cooking in my mind that I'm probably never going to get to write, I had a third book which I already drafted, or it's already done. It's not sold to anybody, so I don't think anyone's going to see it anytime soon, but it is another contemporary fantasy, very different in tone from Mod Div, but my plan was, if I could sell the Alaric novella, I had a long con here. If I could sell the Alaric novella, which, like I said, I don't think I'll be able to, so this might be a moot point. If I could, there was one character in that was going to tie that book, vaguely. It was barely going to tie that book to the third book.
Okay.
And it was a brief mention. It was more of it was a little cameo from this side character, but I was this is going to be the same universe here. You're not going to know it because it's all different characters, but you'll see it. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think I had it in my draft that this character was mentioned, and then my agent was like, it's not getting sold there, take it out. You can't do that. And I was like, dang it. So yeah, I mean, I have those novella ideas where it's, teenage Lou, coming of age, magical story, the Alaric novella, and then I had this third book, which was its own separate thing. It's definitely not a thing that really changes the world or the lore of Mod Div, but that was done, and it was supposed to kind of tie into that, barely. It's genuinely just a cameo. It's that was it. But in my head, I was this makes so much sense. I was feeling Charlie Day, on the board. That was, I was this is what's going on here.
So the next question is something that I ask everyone, every author I talk to, because I feel it's fun, and it's fun to me. But in your case, it could be a little bit harder, since you said you do not read reviews, but you have read reviews before the first edition got published.
And I still get tagged in reviews. I mean, it's just, if they're negative, I'm just gonna untag myself and try to push it from mind. But yeah, I mean, I still get tagged in them.
Okay, so you sometimes read them.
If somebody tags me in them, I'll read them, but I'm okay.
Yeah. The question is, bear with me, is there some maybe a reaction or feedback that you got on Modern Divination? Could be the first edition, could be the second one, I don't mind, that you think is relevant or kind of funny, because sometimes reviews are very, very funny.
Oh yeah,
I try to be the funniest ever, but sometimes I'm not funny enough.
No, I feel a lot of the really funny ones are funny because they're mean. I really like it when people say that Teddy sucks, because he does. He's such a it's really funny because I I feel like, okay, so I know these characters so intimately. Like I'm in there. I'm like in the throuple here. Like I'm like this isn't just like a, I'm creating them and they're my little minions. I'm like, no, we're all in love. These like these are my my angel and my devil here on my shoulder. I know them so well. That I feel like I can't see them in this like hot, sexy way that people see them sometimes, which I'm so honored that you think I've written, a good book boyfriend or whatever, but this guy stinks. Like he sucks. And every time I see a review where they're like, I love him so much, he sucks so bad, I'm like, yes, he does. I'm like, solidarity, like you know what's going on. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I feel like I like the way that their dynamic works. Like, for example, I feel like she's in charge. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. He's whatever you say, queen. That's
exactly that. You summarized it perfectly. But yeah.
One that really like made me get offline, which like I'm not gonna be too specific about it, but was something where they were like, this book was so bad. This was the most toxic thing I've ever read. And then they said, which I was kind of like, okay. Like I was like, wait a second. These people who are like mutually wronging each other in like this very like low-key way. I was like, yeah, it's super toxic. But also I was like, yeah, they suck. That's the whole point. Like they're both vitriolic people. But then they started like, they said that they were like, here's my predictions for the book. They gave like a massive list of predictions. And then they were like, I think all of these are going to happen. And I just can't be here for that. And like, most of them were wrong. But then a bunch of people in the comments were like, I can't believe this would happen. Like, I can't believe this author would do this. Absolutely not reading this. And I'm like, this isn't, they didn't even read it. Like, what do you mean? Like that one was more of like a, I guess, like, the hell, sure. Like, if you say so. I guess this happened in the book. I didn't write it, but like, that's fine. That one was like funny to me because I was like, I can't do this. And that was the one that was like right when the book self-published. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not strong enough for this. Like, I was like, I can't, this misinformation being spread online. This isn't even I was like, this isn't even what happened in the book. And that one was kind of, that one made me laugh, but I did have to like just sit there for a while and think about like, I don't know, the state of everything. You know what? I will say I did see one funny one that was like, they called Teddy like the antidote to the toxic alpha male love interest, and then proceeded to say he was like the worst, like, or like the most pathetic character ever. And I was like, yeah, I was like, that's what we want. That was funny.
Yeah, I feel like Teddy is kind of like Lana Del Rey coded. I'm just gonna say this. That's the vibe I got.
No, that's funny. I'm on Tumblr. I get it. I understand.
Yeah,
I'm a Tumblr person.
No, same. But like, thank you so much for joining me. This was very interesting, and I love talking about Modern Divination. I can't wait for it to be out, which is very soon. And yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for letting me talk your ear off about Arcane. See ya.
Bye.